Senate Republicans have just 3 weeks to get President Trump's budget bill to his desk before the 4th of July holiday. Meanwhile, the House Rules Committee is meeting this afternoon to consider the White House Recessions package. So let's head to the Hill and CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, good to see you today. I'm actually really curious about this one, too. What is the Recessions package and what does it mean for us?
Yeah, this is a really interesting dynamic because we don't have this often on Capitol Hill. But remember, Congress essentially approves the money that the government spends. And what has happened is the White House is saying we want to take away some of the spending that you've approved, about $9 billion worth. This is going to incorporate all those cuts from DOGE, Elon Musk's committee there. So what they basically want to do is rescind the money that Congress approved. So they've sent over a package to the Hill, and the Hill has to debate it and approve it. Now, House Republican leaders and Senate Republican leaders want this to go through, and they really only need a majority in both chambers. So Democrats won't really have a say in this. But this is essentially asking Congress to take back money that it has approved. So that $9 billion, a majority of it, about $8 billion, is in terms of foreign aid. Remember, the essentially canceling USAID, that is where that money is. It also asks for another $1 billion to be cut from public broadcasting companies. So this is something that has to be done within 45 days of it being sent over. So time is of the essence on that one as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Caitlin. Thanks for actually really explaining that. Makes sense. So where do things stand, by the way, when it comes to the budget bill and meeting Senate Republicans' self-imposed deadline to get it over the finish line by July 4th?
Yeah, that deadline is ticking closer and closer. So that rescissions package I talked about has nothing to do with this. This is entirely separate. It's very difficult to keep track of these things, so don't worry if you're lost at home. But what we're talking about now is that big, beautiful bill, the president calls it, this budget package, assigning all the spending for next year, this next coming fiscal year. Remember, this includes billions of dollars in cuts and government spending cuts. Now, the House passed it. It's now the Senate's turn to take it up, and they're facing a lot of pressure from some House members to incorporate even deeper spending cuts. They don't need any Democratic support over here on the Senate side either. They're doing this through a process that allows them to skip the filibuster altogether. But basically, they are getting pressure from a lot of sides here. They don't quite have the votes yet from Republicans. You have some Republicans deeply concerned that these cuts don't go far enough. Then you have other Republicans concerned that some of these cuts may go too far in terms of Medicaid and other programs. So a lot to work with here to get on the same page. The president wants this on his desk by July 4th, which means it has to pass the Senate and back to the House by then. That's a very lofty goal. Mid-July, late July is something we may be eyeing.
Oof, okay, we'll see what happens on that one. We know CBS News, we've learned that the Republican Senator Josh Hawley is going to introduce a bill asking to raise the federal minimum wage. What does he want to see it raised to, and how is it likely to have support, especially as we're talking about budget cuts here?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fascinating dynamic. Republicans have long been opposed to raising the federal minimum wage, arguing that's something best left to the states, and they fear that it could have negative consequences for businesses and ultimately consumers. But here you have Josh Hawley, and we reported this exclusively. He is introducing legislation to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. You may remember that from Bernie Sanders' push several years ago while he was running for president on the Democratic side. So this is a position that Hawley wants to take, to raise the minimum wage and also have it adjusted with inflation in subsequent years, which is key. Here's the fascinating part, Mugo, is that the federal minimum wage hasn't been raised since 2009. It's been at $7.25 since then. So lots of states have moved to increase the minimum wage in their states. Missouri Holly's home state is one of them. They are planning to raise the minimum wage by next year to $15 an hour. But basically, this is Holly's attempt to embrace these working class shifts that we've seen over the past several years under Trump, leaving the Democratic Party, moving to Republicans, this kind of realignment of the parties that we've seen in terms of the voter base. This is Holly's way of trying to embrace that shift and pushing Republicans to do the same. Now, he teamed up with a Vermont Democrat, Peter Welch, on this bill. It's unlikely to gain a lot of Republican support given the concerns I laid out, but still striking that he's taking this stance, and someone who's also trying to build a national profile. So keep an eye on him.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns, I feel like you took me to school today. You just taught us so much. Rescissions package. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.